Hello again, whiskey friends. Thanks for joining, everybody. Recently got my hands on 3 samples. The Sagamore Rye Albariño Finish, 15 stars, 3 ports, and the 2 James Grass Widow 10-year Madeira Finish, all similar proofs. I poured these up in a blind flight, and we will review them blind here today to see if these are 3 whiskeys that should be on your radar. So thank you for joining today, whiskey friends. Let's kick off the show. All right. So we're going to go over the details of each of these whiskeys before we get into them. But I do have them set up as a blind flight because all of these are very similar proofs. I will give each of these a score blind. That way the brand and price do not sway me. And then we'll do a reveal to see which one of these comes out on top. Shout out to Todd over at the Bourbon Road podcast and our whiskey friend Nicholas for the samples. Now I don't have the bottles in front of me, so let's do a Google image search here. Looks like Bourbon Bill is all over this Sagamore release. That's not too surprising. But here is what the Sagamore Rye looks like. Estimated MSRP on this is around $80 to $90 from what I could find. And this is in collaboration with a local Maryland winery called Birdie Vineyards. The whiskey was aged for 4 years in its original oak barrel, and then 4 years in the wine casks. And then proof on this one is 103 proof. Our next contender is the 2 James Grass Widow. Now, the one that we're about to go through is marked reserve and is 102.8 proof, which is going to make it more akin to what you're seeing here. This is a picture coming from a seal box single barrel. And I think the blue label is what designates the single barrel and the higher proof ones. There is also a white label one that is around 90, 92 proof. I believe I've gotten a sample of that from Stu before, but I haven't had one at this high of proof. MSRP on this one is going to be around $150, at least based on what I found on that seal box single barrel. Now, 2 James is a Detroit distillery, so this brand is coming out of Michigan, but the 10-year bourbon inside this is Indiana MGP. It is described as a high rye bourbon, but the deeper I was getting into it, I was getting conflicting answers, whether it's the 21% or 36% rye. Technically, both could be classified as a high rye bourbon. I'm not sure on the exact finishing time of this sample, but from what I saw, 6 months seems to be on average how long they are doing the finishing casks. And then the last bottle is going to be the 15 stars fine aged whiskey, 3 ports. The 3 ports being Tawny Port, White Port, and Ruby Port, coming in at 105 proof, and is the most expensive bottle in the flight. MSRP listed at $180. This is a blend of Canadian bourbons ranging in age from 9 years to 15 years. And these hit the market around March of 2025, and I do see them on the shelves in Northern Kentucky today. So I have in front of me 3 samples randomized, marked glasses A, B, and C. I will put a graphic here so that you can follow which of the glasses I am on. We'll go through the nose and the palate of each one individually. Behind the scenes, I will rank them and grade them, and then come back with the results so we can see how these scored, how these ranked, and whether any of these are some that should be on your radar. All right, let's kick things off with sample A here. And cheers to Todd and Nicholas again for setting up today's flight. Man, a range of berries, tropical fruits, and even some root beer notes were the main pull off of the nose of A. Definitely a floral nature to this one as well. Right off the bat, I'm wondering if this one's the rye. There's a high rye bourbon in there, though. I can't get too cocky. Let's go in for a taste. Cheers, everybody. That was pretty gorgeous on first sip there. Mouthfeel was pretty creamy and oily, too. You can kind of see the texture on the glass here. Definitely get the rye spice up front and on the finish. Fruits remain more in that tropical range. The finishing aspects really aren't that prevalent. There is a little bit of a light apple and a light grape, but really comes across more vanilla and custard leaning, particularly on mid-palate. On the third sip there, the grape notes do pick up, and there's a nice white pepper and even a little like a brininess on the back end. Surprising aspect of this one is definitely that it's lighter and creamier across the palate than I was expecting from the nose. All right, now let's explore sample B here. Little darker in color, but not by much. All right, let's go through the nose first. Oh, that one's totally different animal. I mean, leadoff notes were a little bit of leather, actually, which is usually not usually what I go with as a leadoff note. Definitely some honey and some chocolate aspects on this one as well. There's some deeper, richer caramel there too. You know, I keep using the Rolos note over and over again. My kids have been obsessed with buying Rolos when we go to like the drugstore and buy candy before a movie or something. I feel like I got recency bias with my usage of Rolos all the time recently. There are fruits hiding behind all that, but man, is it in the background, which is surprising because all these are finished. All right, let's go in for a taste on this one. Cheers, everybody. Ooh, this one's got some fun things to talk about here. That took an interesting ride with a bunch of different flavors to talk about. Mouthfeel on this one is a step up too. I mean, this one really coats the palate. The other one was really oily and creamy. This is one of the one that really grips the palate, especially the sides of the tongue. Up front, there's a lot of sweetness, and it comes across almost like a cherry sauce with a little bit of chocolate. But then the fun happens on the transition to mid palate. That's where that oak and that leather that I was talking about on the nose really picks up, and it really doesn't let go all the way through the finish. That sit alongside a lovely dark honey. And then as it transitions to the finish, I'm finally starting to get some fruit aspects to this. But those fruit aspects are both dark and bright at the same time. Essentially, I'm bouncing between blackberry and apple, which is very strange, but very delicious at the same time, especially combined with those honey notes. All right, now let's get into sample C here. Again, similar color to what we had before. This one actually might be the darkest one of the flight though, by a tinge. All right, let's start with the nose. Here we go. Ooh, that is totally different. All of these have been totally different. Jeez, guess that makes sense. Okay, this one, especially on the nose, is the most fruit forward. And the fruits are big, bold, and juicy. I mean, grapes for days, but I feel like you could identify every stone fruit and berry that you wanted to on this one. Whether you called it grapes, especially darker leaning grapes, or blackberries, or dark cherries. I mean, it's all in there. Quite a bit of honey again, a little bit of tobacco, and then a lot of oak there too. Very good nose. C might actually have my favorite nose of the flight. All right, let's get into the palate. Cheers, everybody. You know, I will say on this one, it coats the glass well, but you can kind of see how quickly it runs. Comes across as the thinnest mouthfeel of the flight. Not to say that it has a bad mouthfeel, just in comparison to A and B, that did stick out to me immediately. Up front though, again, fruit forward, and you can take that whole range of fruits that we were talking about off the nose, but it's very creamy, fluffy, and vanilla forward. Again, like a custard up front. The transition to mid palate though darkens up all those fruits, but again, it's a medley of them, all of them in a jam. And then the oak picks up as well. And then on the finish is a combination of the oak, the sweetness coming from the fruit and the custard, but also a level of spiciness there too. Baking spices, general range of cinnamon, nutmeg, nothing that is too pronounced, just all of them kind of combined. And then just some drying tannins from the oak, really. Fun pour there and a fun flight all around. I'm going to come back, and when I do, I'll have the scores and the rankings for you. But I'm going to do a little side-by-side here behind the scenes. All right, so here on the channel, we do have a robust scoring system comprised of a flavor score, an experience score, and a value score. Since I am doing this blind, I took the value out of the equation. When we aggregate all these scores together, we end up with a score between 0 to 100 that helps us see how this compares to other whiskeys. I now have the scores for sample A, B, and C. And we are going to start with sample C. Sample C is definitely a whiskey that you could easily destroy. The fruit-forward nature of it was my favorite part, especially considering the almost infinite range of the type of fruits that I was getting, ranging from grapes to blackberries to cherries. You could essentially call out any fruit in that range, and I'd be like, yep, I agree with you. Lost some points on the mouthfeel and the length of the finish, but I love the flavors all throughout. And that added up to an overall score of an 84 out of 100. All right, let's see which one we were sipping on here. And as that zooms in, we've got a 15, which means this one was the 15 stars, 3 ports. I had been really curious to try something in the 15 stars line, and this brought the fruits that you would expect from something labeled as 3 ports. And this one was actually the highest proof in the flight at 105 proof. This profile, with its fruit forwardness and the complexity with the oak notes on that back end, I do think this one would be a crowd pleaser, especially to people that aren't into higher strength whiskeys that still want that complexity. Now we are on to Sample A. Sample A was impressive with its combination of sweetness, tropical notes, and the longer it sat, the more this light grape, light apple notes continue to emerge. On the palate, the most interesting part of this one really happens between mid-palate and the finish. And the finish on A is a bit stronger, blending all these sweet notes and spicy notes combined with those fruit notes. All right, let's get a reveal on A here. And A is the Sagamore. Now, I was pretty sure A was a rye the entire time. If anything, I should have added another rye to today's flight. But the Albariño finish on this is interesting and very delicate. And in the end, graded this one at an 85 out of 100. So that brings us to the winner of today's flight. By elimination, this one is the 2 James Grass Widow, 10-year finished in Madeira Reserve. The honey on this one became more and more pronounced as time went on. And in a lot of ways, this might be one of the least aggressive Madeira finishes I've had in a while. It's very, very subtle in its presentation. Really enjoy the dynamic nature of these little tobacco, toffee notes that you hit mid-palate, combined with that essentially cherry syrup grape combination. And amongst the entire flight, though actually I think this one's actually technically the lowest proof by 0.2, but it is the lowest proof, has the best mouthfeel and the longest finish, putting this one at the end at a score of an 86. So as you can see here, this is actually a pretty tight flight. So what do you think of the results of today's flight? Have you tried any of these before yourself? And what did you think of them? Let us know in the comments. And just remember, while you can always find more whiskey, you can never have enough whiskey, friends. So take care of those around you, and we will catch you on the next one. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for watching Hello Again, Whiskey Friends, everybody. A big shout out to our amazing Patreon community. If it wasn't for you, we couldn't continue to produce the content and barrel picks week after week. And for everybody else out there, be sure to hit that like and subscribe. It really helps the channel more than you know. And we'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye, everybody.